Hello everyone, welcome to Frightful Whispers. I'm here to guide you into the shadows tonight. I know you're using this video to unwind and drift off to sleep. So, before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? Now, get cozy, relax, and let the whispers of the night take over. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I moved into this apartment. It seemed perfect at first. A small, quiet place far from the noise of the world, tucked away in a forgotten corner of the city. I thought it would be my escape, my fresh start. After all, I needed something new, something to silence the noise in my head, to heal the parts of me that had been broken by years of living in my own shadow. But now it feels like a trap. Like the apartment itself is alive, breathing, waiting. I don't even know how to explain it, but something's wrong here. I can feel it in the air. The walls, they're watching me. When I first stepped inside, I tried to ignore it. The building is old, probably older than I am, and the paint was chipped. The floorboards creaked with every step. The kind of place that had stories to tell if you bothered to listen. But I didn't care about that. I just wanted peace. But from the moment I unpacked my first box, I felt it. The stillness in the air, the kind that makes your skin crawl. It was like the space was holding its breath. I pushed it to the back of my mind. Maybe it was just the anxiety, that endless stream of worry I couldn't shut off. But every time I looked at the walls, I felt like I wasn't alone. And it wasn't just in my head. I went to bed that first night hoping I could sleep through the discomfort. I told myself it was all in my head. This was just a new place, and I needed to settle in. But then I heard it. A faint scratching sound, like nails scraping against wood. At first, I told myself it was the building settling. Some old pipes or beams creaking in the night. But it didn't stop. It came again and then again, each time closer, as if the walls themselves were shifting, groaning with some terrible purpose. I tried to ignore it. I pulled the covers over my head and squeezed my eyes shut, hoping it would just go away. But then I saw them. Two glowing eyes. They weren't big at first, just little glimmers at the edge of my vision. I thought I was imagining it, that my mind was playing tricks on me. But the eyes, they were real. They blinked slowly, almost lazily, as if they had all the time in the world to watch me. I froze. I couldn't look away. The eyes grew bigger, more intense, like they were feeding off my fear, and my heart, oh God, my heart, started to pound, faster and faster, as if it were trying to outrun the terror that was crawling up my spine. The walls creaked again, louder this time. I felt like they were closing in on me, like the whole apartment was a cage and I was the prey. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't move. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't listen. The eyes were there, unblinking, following me. Lisa, that voice. It wasn't my own. It didn't come from anywhere I could pinpoint, but I heard it. I heard my name, and my heart stopped in my chest. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to tell myself it was just a product of my overactive mind, but I couldn't. Because those eyes, they knew me. I don't know how long I stood there, my breath shallow, my legs too weak to move. The eyes never wavered. They grew bigger still, glowing with that unnatural light, and I could feel them burrowing into me like they were inside my skull, twisting my thoughts. I couldn't escape them. And then the whispers came again. Lisa, you've been hiding from me for so long. The walls around me trembled, and I took a step back, only to find that there was nowhere to go. My skin prickled as the air grew colder, like a cold breath was being exhaled from the very walls themselves. The room felt smaller. The space between me and the eyes felt shorter with every passing second. I backed into the corner of the room, my eyes locked on those glowing orbs. They weren't just watching me anymore. They were feeding off me, growing stronger with every pulse of fear that shot through my veins. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I was frozen in place, unable to tear my eyes away. And the voice, oh God, the voice, grew louder, rasping now, like 1,000 whispers fighting to break through. Do you feel it, Lisa? Your guilt, your fear, it's so delicious. It was like the walls themselves were alive, pushing against me. My chest felt tight, suffocating. The eyes were growing, filling the room with their hunger. The walls weren't just old, they weren't just cracks and creaks. They were alive with something dark, something ancient, something that had been waiting for me, waiting to consume me. And all the while, the eyes, those terrible, glowing eyes, continued to watch me. And then, I heard it again. A low, scraping sound. But this time, it wasn't just the walls. It was coming from inside the walls. Something moving behind the plaster, something alive. I staggered back, my legs giving out beneath me. But before I could hit the floor, I heard that voice again. Almost a growl now. Lisa, you can't run from me. You've never been able to. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just the walls. It wasn't just my mind playing tricks. It was here. The thing in the walls. The thing that had been waiting for me to step into its grasp. And as the room grew darker, as the eyes grew larger, I understood one horrifying truth. It was feeding on me. It had been feeding on my fear, on my guilt, on everything I'd buried inside me. And I couldn't escape. Not from the walls. Not from the creature. And certainly not from myself. When I first moved into this apartment, I thought I was escaping. Escaping the weight of the world, escaping my past, my mistakes, the darkness that had followed me everywhere. I thought a change of scenery, somewhere new, somewhere quiet, might offer me the peace I so desperately needed. I had no idea how wrong I was. It's hard to describe what I felt the moment I stepped inside, but I'll try. The air was thick, like it had been sitting there for far too long, holding its breath. The apartment was small, nothing special, the kind of place people might overlook. The walls were cracked, the paint chipped, and the floorboards creaked underfoot. But there was something else, something I couldn't quite place. A strange stillness, like the building itself was waiting, watching. I tried to tell myself it was just nerves, that maybe I was just imagining things. It was an old building, sure, and I was used to feeling anxious, especially in new places. But this felt different. The silence here wasn't normal. It was too thick, too heavy, like the walls had stories of their own, stories they weren't quite ready to share. That first night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, thoughts spiraling out of control, until I was certain I could hear something moving behind the walls. A faint scratching sound, almost imperceptible, like the whisper of nails dragging across wood. At first, I thought it was just the building settling, but the sound didn't stop. It grew louder, closer. It was as if the walls themselves were shifting, groaning in pain. And then, the eyes. They weren't there when I first walked in. No, they came later. Just the smallest glimmer at the corner of my vision. But they were unmistakable. Two glowing amber eyes peering out from the crack in the wall. I blinked, thinking it was just my imagination, but they didn't vanish. They were there, watching me. At first, they were small, almost like reflections in the dark. But as the minutes passed, they grew. larger, brighter, until they were the size of saucers, glowing with an intensity that made my heart pound in my chest. They were watching me, not in a way that made me feel observed, but in a way that made me feel hunted, like a predator sizing up its prey. My breath hitched in my throat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But I couldn't. I couldn't move. The fear gripped me, paralyzed me, as those eyes grew larger still, almost as if they were pushing through the wall, stretching and straining to break free. And that's when I heard it. Lisa. My name. It came from the walls, from those eyes. It was a voice, if you could even call it a voice. It was low, slithering, distorted. Not a sound I could describe, but a feeling, a vibration deep within my chest. It made my heart freeze. No one else was here. No one could have called my name. It was impossible. And yet, there it was. I wanted to tear my eyes away, but I couldn't. The eyes held me, kept me in place, anchored me to the spot as the voice echoed again, softer this time. Lisa, you've been hiding from me for so long. It wasn't just the eyes that had me trapped. It was the way the walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with every whisper, every movement of the creature inside. I could feel it now, not just in the walls but in the air around me. It was like the space itself was alive, suffocating me. The more I feared it, the stronger it grew. My pulse quickened, the air in the room growing colder, thicker. The walls groaned, and I could hear something shift behind them. Not just the faint scratching now, but something larger, something more deliberate. Something was moving in there, something alive. I tried to step back, but I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, staring into those glowing eyes, unable to tear myself away. That's when I realized the horrifying truth. The creature wasn't just in the walls. It was inside me, too. The longer I stood there, the more I could feel it, slithering through my thoughts, crawling beneath my skin. It wasn't just feeding off my fear anymore. It was feeding off my memories. It was feeding off my guilt. "Do you remember what you've done?" it whispered. "The things you've buried so deep, the mistakes you've tried to forget." I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to remember. But the creature made me. Its voice wormed its way into my mind, bringing to the surface every mistake I had ever made, every regret, every painful memory I thought I had left behind. It knew. It knew everything. I tried to scream, I tried to break free, but the walls closed in around me, pressing down on me, suffocating me. The creature was no longer just in the walls. It was in my head. It was in my soul. I couldn't escape. The eyes were no longer just in the wall. They were everywhere now. They were inside me, watching me from the corners of my mind, feeding off my every fear, every doubt. And just as I thought I might break, just as I thought I might lose myself to it forever, the voice whispered one last time, cold and cruel. "You can't escape, Lisa. You were always mine." And that's when I realized. The creature hadn't been waiting for me to move in. It had been waiting for me to break. And now that I had, it would never let me go. It had always been inside me. It had always been a part of me. And there was no escaping it now. I should have known something was wrong from the moment I stepped inside. There was a heaviness in the air, like the apartment itself was holding its breath. The walls, old, worn, and peeling, seemed to whisper to me, urging me to leave. But I didn't listen. I thought this new place, this quiet little apartment, would be my escape. A fresh start. The silence would be my sanctuary. It was everything I needed, or so I thought, but now I know better. At first, it was easy to convince myself that it was all in my head, the creaks, the groans, the scratching sounds that echoed through the walls at night. The apartment was old, after all. Old buildings made noise, but that was before I saw the eyes. It started small, just a glimmer, a flicker of light in the dark corner of the wall. I blinked, thinking it was a trick of the light, but when I looked again, they were still there. 2 amber eyes, glowing, unblinking, fixed on me, watching, waiting. I froze. My heart raced, a cold sweat forming on the back of my neck. It couldn't be real. I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe it was just the shadows playing tricks on me. But no, these eyes, they were alive. They were staring at me, and the longer I looked, the more they seemed to grow. Larger, brighter, more intense. My pulse thundered in my ears. I turned away quickly, willing myself to calm down, but it was no use. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The eyes, they weren't just in the wall. They were inside me, burrowing into my thoughts, digging through the darkest corners of my mind. I tried to move, tried to escape, but the terror that gripped me was paralyzing. And then it spoke. "Lisa!" I spun around, my breath catching in my throat. But the room was empty. The walls were still. The eyes were still there, watching. "Lisa," it said again. The voice, if you could even call it a voice, was distorted, crawling into my skull, wrapping around my thoughts like a cold, slippery hand. It wasn't my name, not the way it should have sounded. It was something else, something twisted. I stumbled back, my legs shaking beneath me. The walls groaned, louder now, almost as if they were alive, shifting, breathing. And the eyes, they grew. They expanded until they filled the entire wall, glowing with a sickly intensity. They weren't just eyes anymore, they were something else. Something that wanted to devour me, to feed on my fear. "Do you feel it, Lisa?" The voice slithered through the cracks in the wall. "The guilt, the shame, it's all so delicious." I could feel it now, the pressure building in my chest, the weight of everything I had buried deep inside me. The creature in the walls knew me. It knew my darkest secrets, my deepest regrets. It had been feeding off them, feeding off me, from the moment I stepped foot in this place. I tried to run, I had to get out. But the door wouldn't open. It was as though the walls had closed in on me, trapping me in this nightmare. The eyes were everywhere now. They were in the corners, in the cracks, in the air around me. They were inside me. I couldn't escape them. The creature wasn't just in the walls anymore. It was in my mind, in my soul. It was crawling through every thought, every memory, twisting everything into something horrible. And I understood then. The creature wasn't just feeding on my fear, it was feeding on my guilt, my mistakes. It had been waiting for me to crack, to break. "Do you remember, Lisa?" the voice rasped. "Do you remember the things you've done? The people you've hurt? The lies you've told?" It was right. I did remember. I remembered it all, every failure, every regret, every person I had wronged. The memories came flooding back, each one sharper, more painful than the last. I could feel the creature feasting on them, growing stronger with every second. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break free, but the creature's presence was too strong, too suffocating. I couldn't breathe. The walls pressed closer, closing in around me, and the eyes, those eyes, grew. They were all I could see, all I could hear. And then it spoke again. This time, louder, more forceful. "You can't escape, Lisa. You've never been able to." I tried to fight it. I tried to push through the terror, to escape. But the creature's grip was everywhere. The walls weren't just walls anymore. They were alive, pulsing with the creature's hunger, bending around me, warping into something unrecognizable. The eyes filled the room, the walls, my mind. I was trapped. I was trapped inside my own head, inside the walls of this apartment, and there was no way out. The worst part? The creature wasn't just in the walls. It wasn't just in the apartment. It was inside me. That's when I realized the truth. The creature had been waiting for me all along. It wasn't just in the apartment. It had always been in me, feeding on my fear, my guilt, my every weakness. And now it owned me. There was no escaping it. Not the walls, not the eyes, not the creature, and certainly not myself. I thought moving into a new apartment would bring me peace, a fresh start, a new chapter. But the moment I stepped through the door, I felt it, something cold, something watching. The walls, the air, they felt alive, like they were breathing, waiting. I tried to ignore it, of course. I told myself it was just my anxiety, my overactive mind running wild again. After all, this place was supposed to be an escape, not a nightmare. But I was wrong. At first, everything seemed fine. The apartment was old, sure, charming in a way. The kind of place that had character, its creaking floorboards and faded wallpaper adding to its nostalgic allure. The neighbors were quiet, and the building was tucked away on the edge of the city, far from the noise and chaos I'd been trying to outrun. I should have been happy. I should have been relieved. But there was something about this place. Something that tugged at the edges of my mind. Something I couldn't shake. That night, I heard it, a faint scratching. It started soft, so soft I wasn't sure if I was imagining it. But as the night deepened, so did the sound. It was coming from the walls. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Old pipes, the building settling. But it wasn't just the sound. There was a presence, a weight that pressed down on me. My breath came in shallow gasps, my chest tight. I turned on every light in the apartment, hoping the brightness would chase the darkness away. But the sound didn't stop. And then I saw them. 2 glowing amber eyes. They weren't there at first, but when I looked again, they were. 2 eyes peering from the cracks in the wall, glowing with an unsettling intensity. At first, I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me. Too much stress, too much exhaustion. But the eyes didn't fade. They only grew bigger, watching, waiting. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest, the blood rushing in my ears. I couldn't move. I couldn't tear my eyes away from those eyes. They weren't just staring at me. They were studying me, like they were looking straight into my soul. The fear built in my chest, curling up, squeezing the air from my lungs. I backed up, one step then another, my legs shaking beneath me. But it didn't matter. The eyes followed me. They never blinked. They never looked away. Lisa! My name. I tried to scream, to call for help, but no sound came out. My throat tightened and my mouth went dry. The walls, those walls, breathed. I could hear them groaning, shifting, as if something inside was stretching, waking up. I backed into the corner of the room, unable to take my eyes off the glowing orbs. They weren't just eyes anymore. They were alive. And whatever was inside the walls was alive too. Lisa, the voice, if you could call it a voice, whispered again, this time from inside the walls. It was low, distorted, a rasping echo that seemed to crawl beneath my skin, straight into my mind. I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, my body frozen in place, but I couldn't look away. The fear, the absolute terror, poured from me, feeding whatever was behind the walls. The eyes grew larger, the glow more intense. I couldn't escape. There was nowhere to run. You've been hiding from me for so long, Lisa. I could feel it now, like something was crawling through my thoughts, twisting my memories, feeding on them. The voice wasn't just in the walls. It was inside me. It was everywhere. And then I realized The creature in the walls wasn't just feeding on my fear. It was feeding on my guilt. It knew me. It knew everything. The memories flooded back, things I'd buried, things I'd tried to forget, every mistake, every person I'd wronged, every lie. The creature whispered them to me, each dark secret falling from its lips like a twisted confession. It was feeding on me piece by piece. I screamed. This time, the scream came out. A broken, ragged sound that barely left my throat. But it didn't matter. The walls groaned louder now, shaking as if they were closing in on me. The eyes grew until they filled the room, until they were all I could see. And then, in the silence between the whispers, I heard it. The creature. It wasn't just in the walls anymore. It was here, in the room with me. I tried to run. I had to get out. I had to escape, but the door wouldn't open. The walls, they were alive, suffocating me. The creature had woven itself into the very fabric of this place, into me. You can't run from me, Lisa. The voice was cold, cruel. It wasn't the voice of the creature in the walls anymore. It was in my mind, inside me. The creature was in my thoughts, my memories. It was everything I was, everything I had been. I realized then there was no escape. The creature had always been there. It wasn't just a parasite living in the walls. It was feeding off my own soul, my own regrets. It wasn't something separate. It was me. And just like that, I knew it would never stop. It would never let me go. Because the creature wasn't just in the walls. It was inside me. The walls shook again, but this time the eyes didn't just watch. They saw. They consumed. And as the darkness swallowed me whole, I understood the terrible truth. The creature had always been mine. And now it would never let me go. Thank you for venturing into the shadows with me here at Frightful Whispers. Remember, the darkness holds secrets, but also whispers truths to those who dare to listen. If tonight's tale sent shivers down your spine, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the fire of fright alive. Rest easy, but keep one eye open, for the night is never truly still. Until we meet again, stay vigilant, stay curious, and let the whispers guide you.